Tom Seaver passed away at the age of 75, and known as Tom Terrific. And he came out of USC, I think originally drafted by the Dodgers. And I think Tommy Lasorda was the scout who was going to sign Tom Seaver, and Seaver wanted like $50,000 signing bonus, and the Dodgers said no. He eventually, I think, got drafted by the Atlanta Braves, and then something happened, and I don't know the full story. Went back to school, tried to go back to school. They wouldn't let him pitch at USC, and then he went to the New York Mets. And understand that the Mets one year, they lost 120 games, which is really hard to lose that many games. And this was 1962. So Tom Seaver, I think, got there in 1966. And then you started to see where he'd win like 15 or 16 games. And then all of a sudden, something magical happened. And, the Miracle Mets. Because, 7 years later, they're winning a World Series. And you had Tom Seaver, you had Jerry Koosman. John Matlack, I don't think, got there until 70. You had Gary Gentry. Nolan Ryan wasn't good enough to make the rotation. He was a reliever on that team. But Tom Seaver and the Mets, great pitching staff, colorful team, colorful characters. But they, Cleon Jones and Art Shamsky and Al Weiss. I mean, they didn't have a great team as far as talent goes, but they had a unbeatable team. They complemented each other, and you had that great pitching staff as well. Gil Hodges is the manager, but Tom Seaver, I was fortunate when he got traded from the Mets to the Cincinnati Reds, and that was like Pat Zachary and Doug Flynn, and the Reds got Tom Seaver, and it was like, how did the Reds get Tom Seaver? And he ended up throwing a no-hitter for the Cincinnati Reds, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the highest percentages of votes in Hall of Fame history. If you were going to put one picture of a pitcher, or if I was going to do a movie about a pitcher, he would look and perform like Tom Seaver. Matinee Idol looks, and he just had his ability to. His form was spectacular. And he won over 300 games, over 3,000 strikeouts. And there was just something about Tom Seaver when he took the mound, that confidence. And I got to see him at Yankee Stadium when he pitched for the White Sox. So he was going for his 300th win. And he's 40 years of age. And he's completing games back then. I don't know how many games. He may have completed 6 or 7 games that year. He's 40 years of age. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, Dan, you're right. At age 39 and 40 with the White Sox, he was 15-11, then 16-11. He completed 10 games and then 6 games. No one in the baseball is going to complete 6 games this year.
Oh, my God.
Any year.
Yeah. But he was, they talked about being a workhorse. That's when you have that number one guy, you feel really confident when you send him out to the mound. And Tom Seaver exuded that at age 75, passing away. And you have to understand who the Mets were before he got there. And there were books written about how bad and you had Casey Stengel, who was a colorful manager, but they lost 120 games. And to prove that wasn't a fluke, I think they lost like 110 and 115 in other seasons there. Yeah, Paul.
The first year he was with the Mets, they were 61 and 101. They were the worst. 2 years later, they were 162 and won the World Series. 2 years later.
Yeah. Pretty remarkable. Beat the Baltimore Orioles, and that Orioles team had a great pitching staff, and they had Hall of Famers with Frank and Brooks Robinson. You had Boog Powell, Mark Belanger, your shortstop. You had Paul Blair, Buford. Don Buford was on that team. They had a really, really good team, the Orioles, and a really good rotation as well. So Tom Seaver, rest in peace at the age of 75. Anthony joins us from California. Hi, Ant-Man.
Good morning, Dan.
Morning.
Yeah, it's just a really, really sad day. It's my boyhood hero is no more. Growing up in the 60s, every kid wanted to be Tom Seaver. Every kid wanted to do his drop-down delivery, and we came home with skin knees and and ripped jeans left and right. Our mothers would yell at us. But in an era when pitchers were called to pitch deep into the game every single time, you could spend hours talking about his Hall of Fame stats and how they hold up. And even now, more than a half century later, just thinking about Tom brings you back to '69 and how he put a hapless team on his shoulders and made them and all of New York believe that the impossible could and would happen. I cried in '77 when they traded him. I was just beside myself because of what Dick Young did and what the owners did at the time, and I cried last night. It's just a very sad day. It's like a big part of my childhood is over now.
Well, thank you, Anthony. I appreciate your thoughts on that, your memories. Yeah, Dick Young was a columnist, New York Daily News, and he was rough on Tom Seaver there. And I don't know if contract issues, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head, but I think there were contract issues, and then they decided they were going to trade him to the Cincinnati Reds. And I felt bad for Doug Flynn, and I think it's Pat Zachary. They were sent to the Mets, and people thought, well, what are we getting for Tom Seaver? And then you realized you weren't getting Tom Seaver. Mike in California. Hi, Mike. What do you have for me?
Hey, what's up, DP? Hey, real quick, my uncle and Tom were really good friends, played ball in high school and a little bit after that. And anyways, he flew my uncle and my grandfather out to when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, stayed at his house and stuff like that. Anyways, my uncle passed away about 11 years ago, and at the funeral, I ran into Tom and seen a bunch of pictures with my uncle and Tom playing golf together, and I didn't know my uncle played golf. So I said, "Hey, Tom, I didn't know my uncle played golf. Was he any good?" And Tom said, "You know what your uncle was good at? Mind you, DP, my uncle's full-blooded Italian." I said, "What's that, Tom?" He said, "Never shutting the F up. That guy talking your backswing. He'll talk whenever he wanted. He didn't care about the game of golf. I'll tell you that much." So we laughed about that, and I'll never forget that. And so he died almost 11 years, through about 3 days apart. So they're together again. So anyways, thought I'd share that with you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mike. Tom Seaver, one of 5 pitchers all time with at least 300 wins, 3,000 strikeouts, and 3 Cy Young Awards. Steve Carlton, Randy Johnson, Greg Maddux, and Roger Clemens. He was an All-Star 12 times. The only other pitcher, starting pitcher with more All-Star appearances, Warren Spahn, who had 14.